Hello and welcome to another space debris cleaning cryptocurrency SKTLs call.
With some AI and politics and other random things mixed in sometimes.
Space crypto, and you got to lose your lifesaver. Makes you talk funny. Yeah. All right, so here we go. What do you guys want to talk? Space, crypto? We'll talk both. Space, Bryce.
I think the big news is a potential Starship launch on Sunday.
So Elon has been going after the FAA pretty relentlessly for the last month.
Over a $600,000 fine.
And over the fact that he can't get them to give him permission to do the stuff he's trying to get permission to do. Right. And the reasons that they're not allowing him to, the reasons they said they were going to wait until November for that Starship approval was because of some sound worries that it would break the sound barrier and upset the ecosystem.
Oh.
And the stuff that they were upset about, that the FAA was theoretically slowing this approval down for, was not all of it had already been approved. Yeah. It wasn't for safety. And that's what the head of the FAA went and testified in front of Congress. And the Republicans, who now mindlessly love Elon Musk
and SpaceX,
who used to 2 years ago mindlessly hate Elon Musk and Tesla. I don't know if Republicans and Democrats have always loved SpaceX. Yeah. Everybody loves SpaceX.
Yeah.
But Republicans hated Elon and Tesla 2 years ago, but now they love Elon and they're coming around to Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, the Republicans, Republican, Democrat, senator, congressman guy who grilled the FAA was all on Elon's side now.
So are they, where does it stand? What's the FAA going to do?
They're apparently approving it for Sunday.
Okay.
I mean, Elon even tweeted, SpaceX tweeted, they're all X'd.
Right.
They all said, hey, it's going to happen on Sunday, probably, which means they pretty much have gotten permission, or they wouldn't have even said that.
Right. I would think so.
Unless something really goes wrong between now and then, they've got permission. So we will see. Is this now the third or the fourth?
Fifth. I think this is the fifth test. Yeah. I think that's what I just saw.
Runs together in my brain now. The first one blew up almost immediately.
Yeah,
it got off the
It did take off, yeah.
And then the second one,
it really destroyed the pad and stuff.
That's right.
I remember that.
And then the second one got to space.
And I think it blew up during the separation.
That's right.
Stage separation.
And then the third, I don't know. At any rate, it is amazing that it's not amazing. I
think the third one blew up on reentry, and then the fourth one, the booster did a splashdown, and then in the upper stage. Yeah, I think was the booster off on its location.
Yeah, I think it landed in the water.
It was supposed to land in the water, but I don't think it's landed in the right spot in the water.
Okay.
But yeah,
what SpaceX has always done is iterate again and again, and this is the genius of Elon. One of the genius things that Elon has done in his career was recognize that NASA's approach of never wanting things to blow up was actually a detriment to progress.
Yeah.
And allowing it to quickly iterate and progress and change and blow things up and know going into it that that's part of the process. Right. You just accept that, and then you accelerate advancement and progress.
Yeah. Now, and what I think is amazing about that is SpaceX has shown such success with this process of let it blow up and then fix it, like you're talking about. And the other defense contractors still haven't really caught on. Boeing hasn't changed its way of doing things. I have friends that work at Raytheon. I saw them over the last couple of weeks, and they were the same thing. They were still, when they design missiles, it's you spend hours and hours and years working on it, and then finally maybe they'll test it. But Elon has never done that. He just slaps together some.
Well, he does a lot of engineering before they slap it together.
But they do a lot of slapping together.
They do it quickly, and they iterate and improve quickly along the way.
So do you think the other defense companies will ever
catch on? I mean, it's I don't know that they could go back and change the culture. I don't know that they have the balance sheet, the money, the amount of money that Boeing and what is it, Lockheed Martin the ULA,
Yeah.
United Launch Alliance, is a partnership between Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and I think one other, might be Raytheon. But the amount of money that they poured into that is already billions upon billions of dollars. And to be like, hey, we're going to scrap our approach and we're going to start over and start doing the SpaceX approach. Only one who could do that would be like Rocket Lab or someone else who's who is starting from scratch or already has our, Rocket Lab's not starting from scratch, but they're nowhere near the cadence or the size or the technology advance, the recycling every single piece of the equipment. They don't do that. I mean, and no one else has the money to do it.
Right.
I mean, that's when we spoke to Peter Beck, the CEO of Rocket Lab, 6 months, 8 months ago, year ago,
right,
probably 8 or 9 months ago. He quote, tell me if I'm wrong. This is verbatim. He said, one of Elon's superpowers is unlimited access to capital.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And that's just it. SpaceX is worth more than Boeing.
More than any defense company.
But I mean, Boeing's probably more valuable than Lockheed Martin.
I don't know now with at 150.
Yeah, Boeing's had such a problem. Let's look that up.
It's going to be close there. But yeah, in any case, SpaceX's market cap right now is around 210 billion or something like that.
So Lockheed Martin is 144 billion. Boeing's is
right there somewhere.
192 billion.
Oh wow.
Boeing and SpaceX is worth just about as much as Boeing and Lockheed Martin combined.
Oh yeah, that's incredible. And it's a private company, so there's an implicit 15 to 20% discount.
Oh, maybe 50%. Right? I mean, I think you and I talked about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
like, if you're going to put my feet to fire, how much is Starlink worth right now? It's worth 200 billion, dude.
I don't think so. I think it's worth 100. But
they crossed 4 million subs.
Yeah.
Like the sub growth is actually accelerating.
What's the ARR on that? Do you know off the top of your head?
ARR, Bryce, tell the people.
Annual recurring revenue.
I'm going to go with. Well, it's call it $150 a month
for the average sub.
For the average sub.
Okay.
Round it down, $120 a month. Okay. Average sub times 12 months. What do you get? 1440.
500 is it 5.7 billion?
So 5.7 billion.
3, 1, 2. I think that's right.
So you went 4 million times $120 times 12 months. It's basically $6 billion a year in recurring revenue. Gross margins on Starlink, what do you think? 60%? 70%?
Yeah, pretty high. 60. I would say 70%.
So then we're talking almost $5 billion of gross profit. As SpaceX said about a year ago that they turned cash flow positive because of Starlink. Yeah. And that was when Starlink had like 1.2
Yeah, so if they were making
subs.
$5 billion at a 20 PE or price to gross profit, it's worth $100 billion.
Right. And I'm going to tell you there's going to be an Elon premium on it.
Yeah.
And the growth rate, I mean, the growth is 120% a year or something.
Yeah.
So it's going to 10 billion in revenue next year.
Yeah.
So throw 20 times next year's revenue, that puts you at 200 billion. I mean, look, I'm not saying that that's a fair value, but I think in this market, all-time highs with the growth rate that they've got, the cash flow they're kicking off, the high gross margins that Starlink comes with, I'll say Starlink is worth 150 to 200 billion dollars easy. Which means that the rest of SpaceX at this moment is being valued at like 50 or 60 billion dollars in total.
Yeah.
Which, being the only launch provider that can do human beings and large craft and large payloads, the only other private company on the planet that can do any launch successfully right now is, of course, Rocket Lab, but it's like 5 times, 6 times the price per kilogram.
Yeah.
And you can only do small at a time.
I think I looked it up one time. I think you could fit like 2 human beings in a Rocket Lab Electron.
If they were like cramped in.
If you're like this, right?
Yeah.
Just for some perspective, how much payload that is versus you could fit like
43 satellites.
Yeah.
in a Falcon. You can fit 6 human beings in it, I think, is what they said.
That's just in Dragon, the little capsule.
The little capsule on top.
Yeah.
So.
But so one thing I'm thinking through though, if Starlink was a separate business, it would have to start paying the launch company for those launches, right?
Yes.
So
they might be doing that by now. I think they've separated.
You think
Starlink
they have the
out.
accounting like?
I bet they have the accounting like that.
Really?
I bet they're preparing for the IPO anyway.
Yeah.
So, but look, I mean, we can do the math easily on that. If we were to put it to pen to paper, you can go find exactly how much SpaceX charges
per launch,
per unit of weight,
per
kilogram or whatever you want to use, and then like you're going to be able to model that out. And one of the best things about telecom in general, which Starlink is the sunk costs are up front, and then the gross margins and the recurring revenues are very sticky. Yeah. And so once you pay to get that launched and get it up, your like the satellite cost a certain amount of money to build, which SpaceX builds it themselves. Starlink builds it. Actually, that's a good question. I wonder if Starlink, when it actually separates fully out and goes public, will it be on the sheets that Starlink pays SpaceX to build its satellites, or does Starlink subsidiary? Does Starlink itself build its own satellites?
No, I wouldn't think so.
It's SpaceX that builds.
Because those Falcons are going to be used for other purposes besides Starlinks.
But the satellites, I'm saying,
not the satellites. Oh, the satellites. I was thinking.
Who makes the satellites?
Yeah, it's still space. Yeah,
probably SpaceX makes the satellites.
Yeah, I mean that would be odd. I think
Starlink
is
a service provider.
Yeah.
SpaceX is a engineering, industrial, manufacturing. They make their own rocket ships. They make the satellites for Starlink and probably others.
Yeah, that's interesting. I could see it going both ways, I guess.
Yeah. Well, exactly. We'd have to see how they're actually going to put it under whose umbrella, who makes the satellites and who controls. Clearly, Starlink controls the actual services, the internet and cell service that it provides. So
how much of this growth, the recent growth in subscribers, do you think is attributable to the Mini? The backpack thing. I've heard a lot of people,
had to help. Yeah.
A lot of people are really excited about the backpack.
And then, the idea is next. And right now, even, they turned on in Florida, SpaceX it worked with the FCC, Federal Communications, not the FAA.
Yeah.
The FCC gave Starlink permission to use certain frequencies that it normally would not have the right to use. Yeah. But they're now delivering SMS text messaging for free to anybody in the Florida area who's
North Carolina too?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they actually, SpaceX at the same time, last week, SpaceX dropped for free, took 10,000 Starlink terminals and put them gave them out
in North Carolina.
In North Carolina. Yeah. So last week it was the Starlink terminals for broadband. This week, it's SMS text messaging for people's cell phones in Florida.
Okay.
So.
And only T-Mobile customers?
No.
Everyone?
Every
really?
cell. Yes.
Really?
AT&T, Verizon, everybody has access to texting through Starlink.
Really?
In Florida, if you're in the hurricane.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
I read that. I can't say that I know that. Like I haven't used that, but that's what they
said.
have
enough capacity up to do that.
It's not voice and it's no video, no images. It is only SMS, simple messaging service. So it's simple texting.
Right.
So that doesn't take hardly any bandwidth at all to send a few letters over the internet.
Right.
So that's easy. But it is amazing that, number one, in all of human history, we finally, only now in 2024, have satellites that have global coverage with broadband and cell phone service. And there's only one company that has gotten there. Amazon has talked for months, years, probably close to 10 years. They've talked about their Kuiper constellation system, which supposedly was going to compete with Starlink.
Right.
And how many satellites do they have up? I think they sent to one.
They did?
They did it. Starlink, SpaceX, they paid SpaceX to send a test one. a few months ago, maybe 2.
Wasn't there an Amazon shareholder lawsuit about that?
Yes.
Yeah, the Amazon shareholders said that they had a conflict of interest by refusing to launch on SpaceX.
And they finally
and finally they're like, yeah, well, to appease the
we'll at least try it.
Right.
But again, that's where SpaceX, being a monopoly, if they wanted to, could do anti-competitive measures. I mean, like, well, when Starlink launches, it's $10,000. When you launch, it's $1 million.
Right.
Oh, you don't like that? Well, go to the other guy.
Right.
There is no other guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But Elon's actually said he won't do that. He has said he will charge the same price.
Yeah. For all. I mean, really, he has to protect himself against the antitrust stuff, right?
Theoretically, as you know, I don't believe that the Republican Democrat regime under any circumstance ever enforces an antitrust law. The Google news today that they might someday maybe are gonna enforce some breakup of something somewhere, or maybe the App Store is gonna have to let other people download apps to your Google Android phone. It's all bullshit. No, they never do anything to these giant monopolies. And the only thing, look, Google is definitely a monopoly in search right now, but they got there because they're so good. Their product is better than everybody else's. But that doesn't mean it's not a monopoly. And it doesn't mean that they're not doing anti-competitive things with their monopoly, both in search and in Android, which isn't quite a monopoly because iOS certainly competes. But you got Chrome, you got Android, you've got search, you've got the ads, you've got Waymo, you've got all kinds of different divisions inside of Google, and they certainly use some. They got Google AI, which is writing Google Search's ability to index websites to be more competitive than others. So Google's doing stuff that clearly falls under what would be considered breaking antitrust law.
Right.
They're not going to. They'll write a check. They'll do a little something and pretend they have a remedy for it, and it'll be meaningless, and the shareholders will be fine.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that part of the reason that antitrust has not been strictly enforced is because the net effect on the consumer has generally been positive? Like, consumers are fairly happy with Apple. They enjoy using Google. They don't. Like the Google competitors, Microsoft is pissed about it, but consumers are get Google for free. They get Meta stuff for free. Apple
it's hard. That's a great point.
There's not the political will, the people clamoring on the streets, we want to break up Google. That's not happening. And so the politicians are like, technically they're violating the law, but my constituents don't care.
Maybe it's a good point because again, the product itself, it won on merit. It didn't win because they rolled up all their competitors or something, right? And so that's number one. And number two, in the last, during the internet age, during the computer era of this world, everything's deflationary. Technology is always deflationary. You get a supercomputer in your pocket that used to, 20 years ago, the greatest Windows Intel computer, cutting edge. You could pay $12,000 for the most advanced Alienware computer, and it wouldn't do half or a third of what this phone can do for $900.
Yeah.
So it's hard to, I
just think if going back to the SpaceX, if Elon with his monopoly of 5,000 or 6,000 satellites in space right now decides that he wants to charge his competitors way more than he charges himself, and then the consumer price doubles every year or something crazy
for Starlink.
Yeah, for Starlink, and just starts raking everybody over the coals. And I think the political will would go up to say that he's being monopolistic.
But you're probably right. Then the constituents themselves, the pitchforks would come out, right?
What I mean.
But there are no pitchforks about SpaceX right now because you're just so thankful. And frankly, the pricing is competitive. I mean, DSL in rural New Mexico is terrible. I got 1 megabit, maybe 3 megabit download at most at my house 3 years ago before I had Starlink, and I paid $90 a month for it. And now I pay $130 a month to SpaceX Starlink, and I get 100 megabit download. You know,
Right.
so I'm thrilled. I'm
Right,
like, I'll
yeah.
happily pay
And-
130
and,
bucks
like,
for real internet.
Every story I've heard from Starlink customers is the same thing.
It's the same thing
Right,
you
so
get from anybody who's driven a Tesla.
Right.
The products are
Right.
awesome.
And like in the historical monopolies that have been broken up, like I think it was like Standard Oil, like they really like rolled up their competitors. They were choking off. They intentionally like undercutting them. And then there's only one supplier of gasoline or kerosene at that time, right? Like people were pissed, right?
You know, and it's a good point. And you could, railways got broken up.
Mhm.
Standard Oil got broken up. And another good example, of course, would be AT&T.
Yeah.
But it was from the beginning created as a monopoly.
By the government?
By the government.
Yeah.
The government realized that there was no way that you could economically allow 4, 5, 10 competitors to come in and put, at the time, twisted pair copper cabling
Yeah.
into every house.
Right. It just didn't make sense to have 4 parallel lines.
No.
sitting
So you
there.
had to, number one, subsidize the monopoly, and you had to, number one, create the monopoly company, a private company, unless you're going to do it like Mexico and Russia did,
Right.
or you're going to have to actually subsidize that
Yeah.
monopoly, because the economics, you know, like if it cost back, you know, 100 years ago to put telephone cables into rural New Mexico, you were never going to get a return on
Right.
that investment.
Right.
But again, that's where Starlink is truly so revolutionary, that there's no cable. There's no
Right.
fiber optic cable. There's
Right.
no copper cable. There's no cable.
Right. Well, we've talked a lot about on this call this hypocrisy in the FCC with the rural broadband subsidies. The government, you know, Congress set I don't know, $10 billion or something
40 billion, like tens of billions
for rural broadband access. And so far, no, I don't think any awards have been made.
No, they've made awards, just nobody's gotten any internet.
Yeah, nobody's got.
They doled out some of the money.
Okay. So nobody's gotten any internet from it, and they originally awarded Starlink some money, and then they revoked that award because they said, you know,
Because Elon wasn't playing their game.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I read the ruling. It was like, it doesn't work with our standards we've set up, and it's like, well, it's because Starlink is such a better product. There is no viable alternative. Like if a house up in the mountains is never going to have a fiber line ran to that.
Oh, it can. Oh, it will.
For
if the
$1 billion.
Exactly right. If the government pays some private company
Yeah.
40% margins on a $10 million trench,
Yeah.
then they're like, hey, yeah, we can get that cable to that guy in rural Appalachian Mountain, no
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
But that was literally what the government did. Like, again, people will blame this on the Democrats, but this predates the Biden administration, that stuff being put in place and being put together. It's the Republicans and the Democrats together.
Trump might have signed that law. I don't know.
I don't even know. But
Yeah.
regardless, it is always the Republican Democrat regime together create these programs, and then whoever is in power can be like, yeah, we're helping, and the other guys can be like, no, they're not. They're wasting your money. But all of them are wasting the money.
Yeah.
And truly, if you had taken I think it's like $40 billion. I'm going to look it up, because whatever the number is, it's so big, and it's more than Starlink needed to wire up every rural consumer in the United States for free. The government could pay 5 years of every consumer in the United States, anyway, rural.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get 10 million people in New York City Starlink.
Yeah.
But you get everybody in rural New
Yeah,
Mexico Starlink for less than you were going to give the one company that was going to get 300 homes.
That's nuts.
Broadband.
Yeah.
It is so, but you know, that happens in the hospital too. You know, I take Amaris to the hospital sometimes, and it's awful. We are in there and we're doing this stuff, and you look around at like the hardware that they use to monitor her and things, and these devices cost tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a pop, and you could put some like $200 band on her and connect it with Bluetooth to a phone, and everybody in the hospital could connect on Wi-Fi and look at what she's doing and monitor it from a central location. And instead we're using this somehow grandfathered in ancient bullshit technology that we don't need to use, because again, Republican Democrat regime has set the rules for the, you know, socialized healthcare / privatized healthcare system we have.
Rural broadband
Initiative money. This says, there it is, $42 billion.
Yeah, it's the BEAD program.
The BEAD program. $42 billion is how much they could allocate. I think they've allocated a handful of $1 billion, and those companies took the money and ran.
Yeah.
Lumen and others, you know.
Just such a waste of resources. And look, I would say no subsidies for anybody. Like, just let the free market do its thing. But if you're gonna give the subsidy, at least make it economic sense with it. You know, the government could do so much. The government's going to
subsidize economically. That's never how that works.
The government's getting more bang for their buck.
Okay, fine.
That's economic.
But they
sense.
never actually bother with this is the agency problem of the government always, right? That it is not their money.
Yeah.
So they don't care.
Right.
Let's just borrow another $1 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. Yeah. You know that Trump's going to actually balance the budget?
Yeah, sure.
No, he's not? No. Oh, Kamala's the one who's going to balance the budget.
No, I don't.
No, she's not? They're both going to borrow trillions?
Yeah.
Oh, how's that? Does that help me at home?
Well, if you can get a piece of that trillion,
that'd be great.
Right?
Yeah, they can dole that out through somehow. Rain down. What is that? Supply side economics. Let's get some of that to flow on down to the poor person. Never plays out that way. Yeah. So, crypto. Number one crypto news, FTX is going to not only pay back its creditors, it's paying back their creditors an extra 20 cents on the dollar.
Because the price of Bitcoin went up?
I'm not sure how all that worked. It seems to me there are still people who lost money because they had their stuff custodianed over there.
Yeah. But
somehow the creditors are getting more than they lent.
I thought everyone was getting more money back. I thought it was like a boon for everybody because I thought it was the price of Bitcoin that, you know, because it's like quadrupled or something since that time.
Okay.
They're actually sending people back. It's actually they still would have been better off.
I was going to say,
right?
So they're still not getting what they actually would have if they hadn't lost their money.
Right.
The creditors are different because they're just supposed to get their money back,
right?
Maybe with a little bit of interest.
Right.
But the people who custodianed and put their money at FTX are probably not getting anywhere near what they actually
you're getting 20% of the price of Bitcoin 4 years ago, or when did they go?
No, you're getting 120% of the price of Bitcoin.
120%.
Yeah.
Right.
But it should be 300% if you were going to get made whole.
Yeah.
So why are they giving any to the creditors?
Because the creditors are going to get paid first, right?
No, the people who custodianed. It's not like you invested in the company.
I know that's
you simply you were like a bank checking account holder.
Yeah, but the bank, the FTX and Coinbase and Robinhood, they're all the same. They tell you.
They do tell you this,
right? When you custody your money with them, if they are your custodian, they are not. You are a creditor to them, just like as if you.
You get in line with the debt with the creditors,
right? And you're an unsecured creditor at that.
Yeah.
And unlike when you put your money in a bank and you are a depositor, that's guaranteed to get their money back by the government. You know, so at least the first couple 100,000.
Which is why years ago when Coinbase made that clear, you pulled your money out of Coinbase.
I did, yeah.
You put it on a cold wallet, or did you sell?
No, I moved it to Robinhood. But Robinhood's the same, as far as I know. I think you're still the only way you are not subject to being a creditor in the event of a bankruptcy is if you have your stuff on a cold wallet.
So, but then you're not using them at all.
Right.
Like you're outside of the system at that point.
Yeah, you can use a Robin. Right, Robin has a digital cold wallet, and Coinbase has a digital cold wallet you can use. And I think in those instances, you are the custodian of your own money and of your crypto. But you can't, if you want to put it back on the exchange so that you can buy or sell or pay somebody with it or do anything with it.
Or stake it. You're not going to stake from a cold wallet.
Yeah. I was looking at my Coinbase cold wallet the other day. I was playing on that Polymarket thing. And so I was like, you can hook up your Coinbase account. So I looked and I had $1.50 in Ethereum on my Coinbase wallet. And I was like, fuck it, I'll put it in there,
Forget it.
Right? Well, it was going to charge me like $25 or something. I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
Not help.
And then it was like, well, you could stake your Ethereum and earn 3% interest. I'm like, okay. I'll put my $1.50 in and stake it. And it was also going to charge like $20 to stake it. I'm like, okay, well, this is
not economic. If you were a Republican Democrat senator at that moment, you'd be like, sounds great.
Yeah. So I don't know how to get that $1.50 out of Coinbase, out of the cold wallet. Because I think it's going to cost me
money.
20
to
bucks. Anyway,
what you do is you hope and pray that Ethereum someday goes up tenfold, and then it's only $15.
Yeah, I think
You need to go up 100-fold.
Yeah, that money's gone.
And then $150, and then you can like, all right, fine, I'll eat 20, and then I can take a date out for a nice bottle of wine.
Right.
Tonight.
Yeah, that's the hope.
That is funny. All right, and then of course, just crypto in general is having a hard time finding its direction.
Mhm.
It's neither up nor down. I mean, Bitcoin's been bouncing around between 55,000 and 65,000 for weeks now.
Yeah, since it had that big run up in like February, March,
right into the ETF launch.
Right, and then it peaked. It ended up hitting 72,000 or something, and then we've just been range bound since then.
Yeah.
So,
any expectations? Where's it headed next, Bryce?
My only guess, the only thing I've seen data wise on this was a friend of ours showed us a chart that showed the direction. The correlation of Bitcoin is directionally correlated to the moves in liquidity, global liquidity, and it's like 88% correlation or something like that.
Which was more than any other asset class.
More than any other asset class, equities, commodities, anything. And so you don't know the degree to which it's correlated, but directionally it's correlated to a high degree. And if global liquidity is going up right now with the Fed cutting, China cutting, and
subsidizing and stimulating,
the ECB and Britain also doing the same. If all of that comes through and global liquidity is on the rise, then yeah, maybe you see maybe Bitcoin breaks out of the range. So, I think at one point I said 100,000 by the end of the year or something like that, but that seems like a long ways away. Today we don't have many days left in this year, so
yeah,
maybe by next year we see 100,000.
85 days to get to 100,000. Yeah.
And there's nothing that says that trend of Bitcoin being directionally correlated holds true this time around.
Right.
I mean,
it was 88%, I think, was the number.
Yeah.
So 88% of the time it moves in the same direction as global liquidity, but that means 12% of the time it doesn't.
Yeah.
And nothing happens in a vacuum. Right. That's what we always say, right? And so it's not going to happen in a vacuum. And it's, the forces of all of the silly meme coins and the fraud and the froth and the silliness and stupidity that runs rampant across most crypto.
Yeah.
Doesn't, that's really been the reason why I've been cautious / even bearish. I've had Bitcoin personally for 11 years now. I've had it in the hedge fund. As soon as we were able to, I used to use Bitcoin futures before I had the ETF. Because again, if you're running a hedge fund, you can't put it on a cold wallet and be like, hey, investors, promise you that cold wallet's safe in my safe at home. You can't do that, right? Like your investors as a hedge fund manager, they expect you to have a prime broker holding the assets, right? Yeah. And so we were never able to buy Bitcoin in the hedge fund, true Bitcoin, and I still don't. But we have the ETF that we use now, and that's great. Love that ability to use it. I trust the system to keep my Bitcoin safe.
Yeah.
Now that being said, I've basically been cautious to bearish on Bitcoin since the recent halving.
Yeah.
Because number one, you had two things happen where people got all in and frothy, bulled up on themselves, where you had the ETF about to launch and that'll change everything forever. It'll unleash trillions of dollars into the system and Bitcoin will go to $1 million. And then you had the halving happen and everybody's like, it's going to cost twice as much to mine the Bitcoin, so that'll make the Bitcoin price double immediately.
Yeah.
Not really how this works.
No.
So the main reason I'm bearish and cautious is because I do think more than 99% of all cryptocurrencies are going down 99% over the next year. Yeah. We're going to another crypto winter.
Yeah.
I don't know if Bitcoin goes into a winter, but I think we go into a crypto winter.
Yeah.
I think we're already in it and people are pretending they're not. They're just denying that they are.
Yeah, the only thing that's really, especially in the Bitcoin mining space, the only thing that has saved those companies is this new AI hype cycle. And
they're AI companies now, Brian.
Instead of using those when I say miners, they're computer servers, right? Instead of dedicating those servers to mining Bitcoin, now you can rent their servers for AI workloads. First of all, I don't think those servers work for AI workloads. And number two, who's going to go sign a deal? If you're a real AI startup, why are you going to go sign a deal with some crappy Bitcoin miner for your
that 6 months ago was like, we're now Bitcoin miners.
Right.
And by the way, you know, they don't call themselves AI companies. They
Oh,
call
really?
themselves HPCs.
Oh, high performance computing.
Yeah, they're HPC companies now.
Okay.
They're not Bitcoin miners, but they're HPC, and they can promise you that they're going to put some serious NVIDIA chips in their system, and they've got cheap electricity that they use to mine Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And since they can't make money mining Bitcoin anymore, they're going to make a lot of money being AI guys.
Yeah.
HPC.
Yeah.
HPC.
And they've got these guaranteed power agreements, right? Everybody can't get power, so you got to go to the AI Bitcoin miners.
Which is the reason, you know, they did really well until recently. The Bitcoin miners have been in a bear market themselves lately, but they did well earlier in the year when the realization of how much demand for power the AI revolution was going to generate. And there is an argument to be made.
Yeah, I mean, that's an asset.
You would think at some point there is a price at which Microsoft or Google or someone would come to one of those miners and be like, look, we'll buy all of your data center real estate, and we're going to rip all your stupid HPC and Bitcoin mining servers out, and we're going to put our NVIDIA cloud servers in, and we're going to use the agreements that you had with this power, or, you know, they build these things next to a waterfall or something, and they'll use hydropower to generate the Bitcoin mining. The problem is these stocks are still trading at valuations that make that uneconomic.
Yeah.
Only a Republican Democrat senator would do that deal, not Google.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to go in and value, like, what's that power agreement? Because that's really their only asset, and the land, right? So you have the land and the buildings, I guess, and this power agreement.
And you can easily do that math.
Right.
Like, and the number is a third or a quarter or 10% of what the market cap of these companies is.
Yeah.
So they need to drop like 90%, and then maybe it could make some sense. But I don't think the economics work at all at this level.
Yeah.
And for the record, in the hedge fund, we are short Bitcoin miners using puts, and we still are.
Yeah. Only other thing I've seen or I saw on Bitcoin in the last week or so that I thought was interesting was just a picture of a slide from a presentation that one of the big banks, like JP Morgan or somebody, was giving to institutional investors in Brazil, I think it was. And it just was talking about Bitcoin as a store of value compared to gold and the dollar. And it was just a long-term chart of the dollar and the purchasing power of the dollar since the Federal Reserve was created in 1912 or whatever year that was. And, you know, it's like less than 1% or less than 0.1%, right, in what you can buy with $1 now. And so that trend is not going to go away. I mean, in another 100 years, the purchasing power of the dollar will be down 99% from where it is today, right?
And that's in the best case scenario for the United States.
Yeah.
We're the petrodollar. We're the reserve currency of the world. We have all the technology, all the software, all the chips, everything that happens that creates wealth in this world happens in the United States. And the Republican Democrat regime and its Federal Reserve still devalue our currency 99% every 50 years.
Yeah.
Which is better than Argentina, which does it every 5 years.
Right. And so as a store of value, I think the story there is still true for Bitcoin. I don't think that trend is going to change. Do you?
No. The Federal Reserve literally says that their mandate, and this is not in their actual mandate. They made this shit up when Republicans and Democrats wanted them to. But they said that they now say that they have a 2 to 3% target for inflation, which means they literally are telling my parents who are now retired and don't make money in a normal way, like a job anymore. They don't make income, only off their savings.
Yeah.
And they're literally telling your grandparents and my parents, hey, we are not the same people, by the way. They're like, hey, old people, we're going to devalue your savings until you die.
Yeah.
And hopefully it won't run out. Hopefully you'll still be able to pay for your nursing home in 20 years, even though we are literally going to devalue your currency on purpose at least 2 to 3% every year forever.
Yeah.
So 2 to 3%, Bryce, put it in there, X to the Y. What is 2.5% inflation in 10 years? 1.025 X to the Y, 10 years. 10 years. 45%?
28%.
0.025. All right. 30%.
Yeah.
So every 10 years, you lose a third of your purchasing power.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And they're literally telling you
Right.
that's our goal. And this is where people are like, the deep state, Trump's going to fight the deep state. Trump's on board.
Yeah.
He's 100%. He wants to control the Federal Reserve so he can create more inflation and devalue your savings even faster.
Yeah.
They're all in on it.
Yeah.
This is why I don't vote for Republicans and Democrats, and I never will.
So I think the long-term bull case for Bitcoin, I think it's the only crypto that is legitimate enough and has reached the critical mass to operate as an effective store of value.
Correct.
That you can, I mean, there's always risk, right?
Yeah, of course there's risk to Bitcoin. There's you can name a million risks.
But there's risk to owning gold. I mean, there's risk to any alternative to the dollar, and there's risk in owning the dollar, obviously. So in terms of the alternatives, I do think Bitcoin is still
the genius of Bitcoin is twofold, and it always has been. So it's the first time I learned about Bitcoin. It was the trustless, decentralized ledger. Like everybody tracks where the money moves, what the wallet numbers are, where they go, what gets mined, and there's lots of transparency and complete transparency and lots of eyeballs watching it all the time.
Right.
So that's best number one. And then number two is limited supply.
Yeah.
The supply gets harder to create over time, and we're already 99% mined out.
Yeah,
something that's like
close,
2 or 3% left to mine.
Yeah.
Total.
Yeah.
And there's never will be another Bitcoin made after the 23 million, I think it is.
I think 21, but I'm not sure.
I always got it wrong. I think it's 22, and then I always go to 23 or 21 because I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But it's something like but whatever it is set in stone, set in code.
Yeah.
And it can't be messed with.
Yeah.
And so how many Bitcoins there ever will be. You can't even say that about gold, right? Like you could at one point. This is the worst bear case for gold is that within 10 or 15 years, SpaceX lands on an asteroid flying by out there in far outer space, and it's got 8 billion pounds of gold on it.
Right.
And they're like, we're going to just send a little bit at a time home and pay for all of our stuff from then on.
Right.
But that would put a cap on gold forever because there would be too much supply, potential supply of gold.
Right. Yeah. I was reading about, it was a podcast I was listening to the other day about the Spanish conquest of the United States or of Americas. And, that a lot of it was looking for the city of gold, which they heard so much about, and it was all fake. But like, I thought to myself, I'm like, so if
fake news back 600 years ago.
Yeah. If the Spaniards had found the city of gold, I'm like, what good does that do for you? Like now there's this huge supply of gold that never existed before. Like it's probably not as valuable, but I guess you control the value.
But that's just it. If you, it's the same way that SpaceX.
Right.
If the Spaniards owned the city of gold, well, first of all, they'd have to go kill all the people who live there.
Right.
The indigenous people who actually built the city of gold have to get wiped out.
You don't think they would share with them? It'd be
I'm gonna bet not.
Yeah.
It's not usually how that worked back then.
No,
it was a lot of pilfering.
Yeah.
Pillaging, pilfering, raping.
Yeah.
Murdering.
Yeah, no, they said that they
genociding.
The Aztecs and stuff did have real gold,
did.
Not a city of gold, and then they would capture. Same with the Mayans, I think they would capture the chiefs and then torture them and force them. They say because the chiefs were like also the gods of the area, and so then they would say, "You force your people to bring us all their gold and their jewelry and everything," and they would torture those chiefs, and then the chiefs would command the people, "Yeah, bring the gold to these guys so they'll let me go." And they did that over and over again,
and then even if they didn't torture them to death, eventually disease from the European people killed.
But they did like pilfer a lot of gold. That way
they did
from the native and silver from the native tribes in the Americas, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a cruel world.
Has been for centuries, millennia.
Yeah,
it's less cruel today than it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Again, I think it's because
things relative, right?
Well, and things are relative, but it's relatively less cruel today because of this internet, the ability to transmit truth, video, words, ideas instantaneously. If people are like, if someone goes into anywhere and starts like just like killing children people see it
Yeah.
and it's reported upon
Yeah.
and people are appalled,
Right.
and there's usually a reaction, and hopefully the reaction is
Right.
reasonable.
Yeah, like if Facebook existed in the 15 and 1600s in Spain,
Yeah.
and all the Spanish people could see what was happening in New Spain, they might have had something to say about that.
They might have been like,
Right.
hey, how about we don't
Right.
like chop everybody's heads off?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This seems like
Yeah.
bad for us.
Just tax them.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Just take their money
Right.
slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Don't steal it all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, I just will mention I do vote. I just don't vote for Republicans or Democrats. I don't waste my votes on those people. You should consider it, because neither one's on your team. Neither one's on your side. And that's about all I've got for people today. Republicans, Democrats, SpaceX, gold, crypto, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
These are the ideas that are running in my head as we do these calls, Bryce.
Yeah. And SKTLs. SKTLs is
SKTLs, the only space debris cleaning cryptocurrency that exists.
Yeah.
All right. With that, any questions or comments? Was that? No? Okay. All right. Well, it's good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. We'll do this again next week. Tomorrow night on these same channels, Facebook, X, and YouTube, we will be live streaming starting at 8 p.m. Mountain Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. What time is that in Abu Dhabi?
They're 10 hours ahead of us, I think.
So 6 a.m. in Abu Dhabi. What time is that in Hong Kong?
4 hours ahead of that, maybe?
I think so too. So that would be 10 a.m. tomorrow morning in Hong Kong. At any rate, look, tomorrow night, 10 p.m.
Saturday or Friday.
Thursday.
Friday morning will be in Hong Kong.
So that would be Friday morning in Hong Kong. Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. The world around can watch Bryce and I live stream the Tesla robot, WeRobot, Cybercab, Robo-Taxi, Optimus robot update. They're doing a big thing that's been planned. They were originally going to do it in like August, and then they postponed it for 2 months, sent the Tesla stock into a free fall.
Yeah.
And now it's come back. Everybody's excited for this call tomorrow. I don't know if everybody. The Bulls are scared. The
Yeah,
Bears,
they're worried. Yeah, they're worried.
I think the Bears are scared too. Everybody's scared. It doesn't matter if you're long or short Tesla right now.
Yeah.
You're scared of the call tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because you're worried whatever it is, it's not going to work out for you.
And I don't think that many people are betting on it one way or the other.
No, why? Why do you know this?
So yeah, I've been telling Cody option premiums for Friday. You can buy the October 11th calls or puts on Tesla, and the premiums are very small. Especially Tesla always historically has had very large premiums, and the premiums on Tesla right now are not that big. So I don't think people are really betting on the Thursday event.
Well, like you would think that the premiums for this call tomorrow would be sort of like going into an earnings call.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
usually that means the week of an earnings call, the premiums on calls and puts are typically higher than they are on a random week. If you buy calls on a in between, or companies report earnings every 90 days, and if you buy calls 45 days in between the earnings reports, they're typically less premium. But when there's a big event or a big earnings report or something, the premiums go up. And so you would think this would be.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's scared. They've already made their bets,
Right.
frankly.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
no-
probably right.
Like people are not today being like, well, what am I going to do for Robo-Taxi tomorrow?
Right.
Like if you actually are on board of either being long or short Tesla into that report, you've probably already thought it through.
Yeah.
So prediction, Bryce. What are they going to say tomorrow? By the way, you can go read an article on Market Watch I wrote predicting several things. I'll give my prediction and then we'll wrap it up. Bryce, what's yours?
Yeah. So I think it could be like the event of the decade is what I told Cody. I have a very bullish opinion. I'm biased. We're long Tesla. We have been for a long time, but I think that they could have cyber. So they're doing it in Warner Brothers studio. It's a 110-acre campus. I think there could be like a whole fake city set up with cabs with no drivers driving around, people getting rides on the Tesla app. Maybe there's Optimus robots sweeping the streets, flipping burgers. I don't know. It could be. They've described it. All we know is it's described as the future, the unveiling of the future of autonomy. So with that, I expect it to look like the future.
And why I'm concerned more than any other reasons, the last time Elon did a full self-driving day was probably 3 years ago, and the stock was down 20% the next day because he said nothing. He was like, look at the chip we make.
Right.
This is cool. Here's how we make the chip. Here's how we designed it. And you could shoot it with a bullet and it'll still work. And it was like, great, but I thought you were going to tell us that you've solved autonomy like you've been saying you would for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
And so there's like, if clearly Tesla's stock has some full self-driving premium in it.
Of course, yeah.
It's an $800 billion market cap, $750 billion market cap right now. So it clearly the market believes some of it, but it doesn't believe it fully, or it would be a $1.5–2 trillion market cap.
Yeah.
So if they actually deliver full self-driving, the stock will be up how much before the end of the year?
I mean, I think it's like probably $350 stocks, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So 70 to 60. What was it? We're at 245. So $100. Yeah, almost a 50% move from here.
Yeah. I bet even more. I mean, if they actually are, what I hope and expect they announce tomorrow will be that if you live in Austin and you download the Tesla app, you can sign in and summon a driverless car.
Like within a couple months or something. I mean,
tomorrow, starting on Friday.
Like they have cars ready to go.
They have a fleet ready to go. They have hundreds of cars in Austin ready that Tesla owns and is going to release into the system. They already got the mayor and everybody in Austin to approve it. It's only in Austin Prime, True Austin Central. Can you do it? You're not going to be able to like go to Round Rock or anything like that, but you'll be able to do it in Austin. You'll be able to ride around. It'll be half the price or 2/3 the price of an Uber. You won't have a driver in it. And if they actually announce that, the stock's up 10–15% on Friday, and it could be at $400 by the end of the year. If they don't announce that, I don't know. Like, I think they need proof in the pudding tomorrow.
Yeah.
They need to show that this is here.
Yeah, I agree.
It can't be, hey, look at how we're getting close, and next year we'll have it.
Right.
That's it. That stock's getting hurt, man. It'll go to 200 by the end of the year. So binary outcome is the setup.
So you're at 400 if it works by the end of the year, and 200 if it doesn't work.
And when I say works, I mean true. Like it has to be like starting. You have to be able to. You and I got to be able to fly to Austin next month, summon a Tesla, and drive to my brother's house.
Yeah.
If that happens, that stock's going to 400. If that doesn't happen, it'll be somewhere between 200 and 300. And if it's complete mess and they're promising pie in the sky stuff next year, stock's at 200 by the end of the year. All right. Thank you. Peace and love, everybody. We'll see you guys we'll see you tomorrow night as this happens.
Yeah.
Stock won't be trading after hours that late.
On Robinhood.
On Robinhood it will.
24-hour market.
Yeah, you never know if the Robinhood pricing after hours like that is actually legit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.